If it helps, it is streaming.
Sarah?
Yes, I'm just switching off the live chat.
Okay.
Thank you, Chairman. We're live streaming on YouTube, ready to start the meeting.
Right. Thank you, Sarah. Good evening and welcome members of the public and councillors to East Devon District Council's virtual overview committee meeting on Thursday, the 24th of September 2020. I am your chair, Councillor Nick Hookway. I would also like to welcome anyone watching the meeting via the live streaming. All participants here today are taking part remotely and the committee is being viewed online and recorded. So please bear this in mind throughout the meeting and may I remind you to be careful with your language. May I also remind members that the code of conduct applies throughout this meeting. We also reserve the right to remove and disconnect any participant who is disrupting the meeting by whatever means. As this meeting is dependent upon internet connection and a power supply, in the event of a break in the internet connection or a power cut, please bear with us as we try to reconnect. If we are not able to reconnect after 15 minutes, the meeting will be adjourned and reconvened at a later date. Please check the committee page on our website for further details. Please make sure that all microphones are muted when you are not speaking to avoid any background noise levels. Please keep your points short and do not interrupt when someone is speaking. If you wish to comment, please raise your electronic blue hand and wait to be called. All councillors have been sent the agenda for today's meeting. Any members of the public who want to view the agenda can do so by visiting our website at www.eastdevon.gov.uk. We will now start the committee by doing a roll call of all members here present. Can you please now unmute your microphone, and when you hear your name, please confirm by saying present. When you have confirmed you are present, please mute your microphone again.
Thank you. Councillor Blakey.
Present.
Councillor Bond.
Present.
Councillor De Sarum.
Present.
Councillor Gazzard.
Present.
Councillor Hall.
Present.
Councillor Hartnell.
Present.
Councillor Hookway.
Present.
Councillor Jackson.
Present.
Councillor Johns.
She's trying to log in. She has an internet problem.
Oh, thank you. Councillor King.
Present.
Councillor Woodward.
Present.
Thank you, Chair.
Right, I confirm that we're now quorate today. Right, agenda item 1, public speaking. The new administration has received a communication from resident Mr. Stephen Pemberton regarding the Sidmouth Beach Management Plan, Pennington Point and East Beach. Mr. Pemberton has agreed to his letter being read out at this meeting. Sue.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Letter from Mr. Pemberton in relation to Sidmouth BMP, Pennington Point and East Beach in relation to lessons learned. I'm writing to all elected members of East Devon Alliance, other parties and independents who formed the recent majority party and now the new EDDC administration. The specific focus is the Sidmouth BMP, Pennington Point and East Beach. This is written in good spirit. It seems that the new administration has forgotten the lessons learned in opposition. It has appeared clear to many for a long time now that EDDC have little or no intention of doing what is needed for Sidmouth unless there is no choice or option. This has a long known history. Sidmouth's long-term residents, locals and local fishermen know this and have long been silenced. There is the endless lack of progress and lack of accountability taken by EDDC, the raised hopes, followed by the additional hoops and hurdles continually put in place, many of which have little or no foundation, apparently conjured up to prevent anything happening. The length of time for the issue of sea defences at Pennington Point and along East Beach to be effectively addressed being one example for which you are now responsible. It appears that the East Devon Alliance, other parties and independents have treated outside views and opinions as hostile and been dismissive of them, been guided and led by EDDC senior officer view, which EDA previously would have treated with extreme caution, failed to recognise that EDDC officer and consultant view is commissioned by EDDC senior officers. This is then reported on, directed, guided and validated by EDDC senior officers themselves, and therefore is not neutral and impartial. To have taken the view that elected councillors run the council when EDDC senior officers themselves run the council have long done so, long guiding and setting the agenda. To have dismissed or minimised the fact that elected councillors come into and have taken on a set of arrangements that have a background and history. That this is a set of arrangements where EDDC senior officers have long set the parameters and direction. When taking forward the EDDC plan, guided by council officers and those commissioned to take forward the council approach, an elected party is merely carrying out the long-established course decided by senior officers, its flaws, covering up its mistakes and validating and covering up its approach. Elected councillors can therefore be carrying out the work of the previous and ongoing actions of senior officers without fully knowing it. Overall, EDDC and all elected councillors are responsible and accountable and will be judged so. Natural England and all other bodies are advisory. They are not the decision-making bodies. East Devon District Council is the decision-making authority, and East Devon District Council has always known it. I understand that this is now openly accepted. It was never an acceptable argument to do nothing. Of particular note, Sidmouth Town Council have made no obvious stand for Sidmouth. EDDC councillors, mainly, are obvious by their silence. The steering group is now led by a councillor who isn't Sidmouth based. There is a group of Sidmouths determined and able, aware of the detailed background and consequences of present plans. There is a gaping hole at Pennington Point, exacerbated by the long-known and long-predictive excessive erosion along East Beach. This is the priority. What is required for Pennington Point and East Beach is revetment and rock islands. This was clearly known in the 1990s. The cost is lower than present plans. Few people feel the present plans will be adequate or effective. Yours, Stephen Pemberton. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Sue. I suggest, committee, that we consider this issue under agenda item 8, the review of the forward plan. Okay, moving on to agenda item 2, minutes of the previous meeting of the committee on the 27th of February 2020. If you have any comments on these minutes, please raise your electronic blue hand and state which minute you are referring to. If there are no blue hands raised, I will take it that the minutes of the previous meeting are approved as a correct record. Are there any hands raised, Sarah?
No, Chair, no hands, no.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, right, moving on to agenda item 3, apologies. Apologies have been received from
Councillor Allen, Councillor Val Ranger and Councillor Megan Armstrong.
Right, thank you very much. Okay, right, agenda item 4, declarations of interest. Declarations of interest will be noted by roll call. Please now unmute your microphone, and when your name is called, please advise the type of interest and the reason. Then please mute your microphone again. Sue, over to you.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. Councillor Blakey.
None, thank you.
Councillor Bond.
None, thank you.
Councillor Desaran.
None, thank you.
Councillor Gazzard.
None, thank you.
Councillor Hall.
Thank you very much. I have declarations of interest really regarding to item 7, both of them. Devon County Councillor. I'm Vice Chairman of ART, which is a mental health charity in Axminster. I'm Chairman of Cloakham Lawn Sports Centre, which is a charity that provides health and wellbeing education through sport. And also, finally, I'm a mental health champion for Devon County Council. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hartnell.
None, thank you.
Sorry, can you just clarify? Sorry, can you just clarify that they're all personal interests for Councillor Hall?
Okay.
Henry, I would say they're all personal interests. There's no pecuniary in any way or form, except for I'd probably lose money on them, if that counts.
Councillor Hookway.
None, thank you.
Councillor Jackson.
None, I don't think.
Okay. Councillor Johns.
Still having problems getting back in, I believe.
Okay. Councillor King.
None, thank you.
And Councillor Woodward.
None, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Sue. Right, agenda item 5, matters of urgency. There are no matters of urgency. Agenda item 6, confidential or exempt items. There are no confidential or exempt items. Agenda item 7, update on the referral from Cabinet meeting of the 21st of July 2020. At the previous meeting, the Overview Committee debated motions in support of the Local Authority Mental Health Challenge and the Healthy Weight Declaration. Notes to summarise and supplement the debate, together with recommendations for the committee to approve, are included on pages 7 to 11 of your papers. I will now invite Andrew Ennis to present the notes. Thank you, Andrew. Is Andrew with us?
He is with us. I think he just needs to unmute himself.
Hello, can I try that again? Can anyone hear me?
Yes, Andrew, that's fine.
Okay, I apologise, Chair. I've got a very poor signal this afternoon, so please bear with me and I'll try to lead you through this.
Of course.
Do you mind what order? Can I start with mental health challenge?
Yes, please.
Okay, so the key issue is we're picking up where we left off a year ago. We absolutely support the principles behind this. The concept of having a member champion and an officer lead for this work area is beyond reproach. We absolutely should do it. My only question, when we look through all the stuff we're already doing and the full range of commitments we're expected to put into this, including the expertise that we don't actually have in-house at the moment, is whether this is the right time to commit significant budget to this area of work in the context of everything else that's going on. I guess that's the job for your overview committee to weigh that up. I can take you through the notes individually, but for me, the big ask is whether this council ought to be employing that sort of expertise alongside the bigger provision that already exists in the county and in the voluntary sector. Chair, how much detail do you want me to go into? You've got the report in front of you. Do you want me to take you through the most significant elements of the roles of the member champion, the officer, for example?
Yes, please, if you would.
Sure, okay. So the member lead would certainly be expected to step up and have a really strong vocal presence, almost an advocacy for mental health issues across the council. They would be expected as part of this challenge to come up with a single big priority each year to help us focus the work of the council. They would be expected to consult with people who actually have lived experiences of mental ill health to help the council when it considers its council priorities. They would of course be expected to work in a respectful and sensitive and empathetic way with all people with mental health problems, and there would be external scrutiny from the challenge coordinator to actually want to know what we're doing and why. And then at officer level, I think the big one for us would be the role of making sure we've got the right information and able to support that member champion by giving them the steer on what are the right ways to deal with the current issues. We'd certainly want to develop and support and implement strategies to tackle some of the issues. We'd have a very significant role, I'd suggest, certainly over the coming months with our own staff and the mental health issues that could well be appearing in our own workforce. And we'd be looking for external support and funding effectively for other activities where that might be available. And that officer would also need to invest time in working with the national challenge team to make sure that we have the right advice and information to hand. I'm reluctant to take up too much of your committee's time, but I'm happy to go on and talk about what we think we're doing well at the moment, if that helps, Chair.
Okay, well, for the moment, take a breath. I've already seen there are non-committee members who've got their hands raised. We may want to come back to you, Andrew. Please stay on the line.
Okay, I'll go to mute.
Thank you. I will first invite non-members to speak by raising their virtual blue hand. Once non-members have spoken, I will then invite members of the committee to speak. So non-members, please indicate if you wish to speak. Okay, Councillor Andrew Moulding.
Thank you, Chairman. And first of all, I'd like to declare an interest because I am patron of ARC, which is in Axminster, the main bereavement and mental health counselling body. And ARC deals with referrals on mental health matters from the Axminster medical practice. And in the 12 years that ARC has been running, it has dealt with over 2,000 patients referred to from the Axminster medical practice. Now, the Axminster medical practice has about 12,000 patients on its books. So 2,000 of those 12,000, in other words, a sixth at least of those patients have been referred due to mental health matters. So it's significant. The problems are major. And I, indeed, my late son, who died 2 years ago from an epileptic fit, he suffered severely from depression. He tried to commit suicide on more than one occasion and was in a mental health institution for odd periods of time. So I've seen what it does to people at first hand. At the same time, I note Andrew Ennis's comments regarding staffing issues and so on, but I don't think that these problems on mental health can wait, particularly due to the COVID-19 pandemic, where there is no doubt we will see even more people suffering from depression and mental health and anxiety through difficulties with business and jobs and the general problems relating to the pandemic. So my view is, Chairman, that we should, with great haste, appoint a council member champion, and at the same time, make sure there are adequate staffing resources to support the work of the mental champion and the council in addressing problems to do with mental health. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Moulding. Right, Councillor Paul Miller, please.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for calling me. Overview asked Cabinet to scope out a lead member or champion for mental health. And I listened very carefully to some of the moving statements made at July Cabinet. I came to the conclusion, following my report that will be going to the next Cabinet, that a mental health champion would add considerable value to this council. Just to respond to some of Andrew Ennis's, or one of Andrew Ennis's points, there are 44 other district councils that have mental health champions. So it's not just the upper tier authorities. There are a number of district councils that have them as well. They have, as Overview recommended, signed the local authority mental health declaration. That declaration commits the council to seeking to improve mental health internally within the organisation and externally within the districts or the area. One of the commitments is to recruit a mental health officer. Councillor Hall and Councillor Gazard joined me in welcoming the housing team's plan at the last Housing Review Board meeting to recruit their own mental health officer. I personally think that may be sufficient for Overview to recommend to council that we need to sign that declaration. It may well not be. I'll listen more to what Andrew Ennis has to say about that. He has also read the declaration as I have. In my view, within the council, we have a long way to go in terms of increasing officer and councillor awareness of mental health illness, mental health awareness. And I speak from personal experience myself. So over the coming weeks, from my point of view, the Member Development Working Party will be developing the council's first ever councillor development strategy, and I want mental health to be a key part of that. And I think a member champion for mental health would be a fantastic addition to my goal to try to make mental health a key part of our development strategy. Externally, the new mental health champion I've proposed for the next Cabinet meeting only needs to look on the gallery view of this meeting to find the county's mental health champion, Councillor Hall. I mean, he has told his own story of his gambling addiction. So our proposed new mental health champion, which will be coming to Cabinet, Councillor Tony Woodward, has many years of experience and specialist knowledge of the relationship between substance abuse, alcohol abuse and mental health. He teaches yoga in prisons, so we couldn't really be in safer hands there. So I hope the committee approves of the outcomes I've reached. But I do take the point that Andrew Ennis made about signing this declaration. So perhaps the committee may ponder that and look at maybe recommending the mental health champion. I think that's fine. But when it comes to signing this declaration, perhaps that might need a bit more work. I'm not sure. I read the declaration and thought that this was something the council could do without too much further scoping, but I may be wrong about that. So I'll leave it for Andrew Ennis maybe to come back on that, and for other committee members and other members of the committee to discuss this as part of the debate. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Miller. So do we have any other non-committee members who wish to speak?
We don't.
Okay, thank you. Right, so where am I? Oh, yes. So committee members, if you wish to speak, would you now please raise your blue hand?
You have three members, Chair. Councillor Bond, Councillor de Sarum and Councillor Gazard.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Bond, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. It's disappointing we don't actually have any member champions at all at the moment. So it's a proposal that they are being reinstated, because I think it was a shame that they were removed from the administration decided to remove them sort of en bloc. So if if they're going to be reinstated, that's a seriously good move. But I don't know whether this is a one-off for a mental health champion or whether they are being reinstated across the board. It'd be useful to know. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I can't answer that question, I'm afraid.
I can come back on that very briefly, Nick, because it is useful information. The next cabinet agenda, Councillor Bond, will tell you the answer. We're proposing to reintroduce 4 new champions: mental health, sport and exercise, armed forces, and culture. And we want to start with 4 and see how it goes. So I hope that helps.
Right, thank you, Councillor Miller. Okay. Councillor de Saran, please.
Yeah, good evening. Thank you, Chair. It's a delight to see you again after so many months have passed. I feel that I too share the committee's enthusiasm for the idea of recruiting a mental health officer, as Councillor Miller has said. And I think that one of the roles which Andrew didn't touch on, although he's talked about the big priorities each year, I think the role needs to be very proactive. So that basically the person, maybe Tony, if he's going to be appointed, needs to look at what has happened, because it said they were going to consult with people who have had mental health issues. And I think what we need to do is proactively do it, because that way the council will actually make financial savings by identifying groups of people and all those people who could, in areas who could be at high risk of mental issues, and specifically do, when COVID permits, a roadshow or whatever else we can do to actually get out there and actually actively engage with these people, to show the people that they're not alone, they don't have anything to fear, because obviously I think fear and loneliness caused by COVID has triggered a lot of stress and anxiety. So that's really what I'd say. I would support the idea of having the mental officer, and I think that one of the roles that we should have would be to that person to actually proactively get out and engage with the communities. I appreciate that these will be costs involved, as Andrew has said, but I do believe it's a very positive thing to go forward. And I thank you very much, Chair, for engaging with me this evening.
Pleasure. Okay. I think we better go to Councillor Woodward, because he was mentioned by Councillor de Saran. Councillor Woodward, would you care to contribute?
Yes. Thank you, Chair. Yes, thank you. Well, I do find myself in a rather bit of a conflict in that I'm the name put forward so far to be the member champion. So, but nevertheless, I think it's important that we do have one. Obviously, otherwise I wouldn't have agreed to do it. But I understand exactly what Andrew Ennis has said in the report, so I accept everything in there, but it still is, there could be a role for a member to either monitor, scrutinise cabinets and other committees as to what is happening with regard to mental health, and also monitor the public health strategic plan to make sure that the council is doing all that it can over the next, well, it's till 2023. So I think there is a contribution which can be made by a member to oversee matters and get out, as Councillor de Saran mentioned. And it's also mentioned that it isn't a clinical role. So I'm not suggesting that I have a clinical expertise, although I do, I have been a trustee of, it's called EDP Drug and Alcohol Services for the last 13 years. I stopped in May, so I haven't made a declaration about that. And we then operated as Together Drug and Alcohol Services in East Devon, and some of you may recall it as RISE, as it was a couple of years ago. And then for the past 4 years, I've been working in one of the Devon prisons, providing yoga and meditation on a weekly basis. And as mentioned in the challenge report, 9 out of 10 prisoners have a mental health issue. So I'm sort of used to that. And while I was there, the Prison Officers Association sponsored me to do a Certificate 2 Awareness in Mental Health program, which I completed about 2 years ago. So I hope I'd be able to bring some interest and knowledge, even if not on a face-to-face clinical position. So I would very much hope that we could recommend at least that a mental health member champion advocate be appointed, even if there aren't the resources at this time for a new or additional officer, although I heard Councillor Miller said that the one has been appointed in housing, and that might be something that could be a joint resource. So thank you for letting me speak.
Of course. Thank you. Thank you very much, Councillor Woodward. Okay. Councillor Gazzard, I believe you are next, yes?
Thank you, Chair. Can I firstly thank Andrew Moulding and Paul Miller for their telling us about their issues. There's no doubt in my mind whatsoever that we definitely do need a mental health champion. We've all seen what's happened over the last 6 months. Mental illness has come to the fore because of COVID. We're now facing a possible another further 6 months of restrictions, and I sincerely believe that the situation is going to get a lot worse. I am also of the view that, unfortunately, because of where we find ourselves with COVID, that suicides will be on the increase. So we need to be doing something about that. I welcome the Housing Review Board's motion to appoint or go out to look for somebody for mental health in regard to housing. And I think there could be some joined up thinking with that across the council. But I mean, Andrew rightly says, yes, there is a cost if we go for an officer. But at the end of the day, to me, every life matters. And if it means that we've got to find the money from reserves, we have to use that money, because people's lives are important, not just to them, but to the rest of society. So I'm fully behind recommending that we appoint a mental health champion, that it goes to Cabinet. But I would go further saying that we should invest in a mental health officer. Thank you.
Thank you. Right. So do we have any other members wishing to speak?
Councillor Hall would like to speak, Chair.
Thank you. Yeah, Councillor Hall.
Thank you, Chairman. Good evening, everybody. I will start off where Councillor Gazzard left off, really looking at the Housing Review Board. About the board agreed, and obviously it will be going to through the decision-making process about having a mental health officer. Therefore, it could possibly be said we could use this officer across the council. But we are here and we are now. When we debate this first in February, we've had a pandemic to deal with. And I think things are ramped up a little, to put it mildly. Now we need to be ahead of the curve. We need to be looking for solutions. And what we need to be doing is ensuring poor mental health does not become mental illness. I think we'd all agree on that. When we are actually looking at the recommendations 1, 2, and 3, I personally have no issues. But when it comes to point 4 about additional resources, let me try to put this into context. We have very recently, as I understand it, have gone out advertising for a climate emergency officer lead. This is an emergency, what we're looking at here with COVID-19. We need to head this off as a matter of urgency. If we do not, we will live to regret this. We have never, ever been through this situation before. I am incredibly proud of how all the different tiers of authority have responded and going down to the local communities. Now, the communities have really helped us help the people of East Devon. We need to ensure we have a very robust framework in place so we can move forward. When we're looking at the mental health challenges of what we presently have, and we're talking individually here and collectively, number one, in no particular order, is we need every single officer and employee at East Devon District Council to be on top form. Without them, we can't do it. Secondly, we as decision makers, the elected 60, we also need to be on top form to make the right decisions for the benefit of the people of East Devon. So I think you're getting the context where I'm coming from here. We cannot afford not to give the necessary resources for this. We also need, in my opinion, to urgently get surveys out to all the officers and all the members to touch base on how they are. Because we have individually and collectively been working our socks off, and we will continue to do so. But you wouldn't drive a car 100 miles an hour for 6 months without having a good service. We need to be able to give the best support across the table. Now, when we are looking at item 4, I would ask us as an overview to recommend that we do go to looking at additional officers, as Councillor Moding said, and it's been endorsed by all the speakers so far, so that we can head this off as best we can. We've all got our individual stories about mental health and therefore mental illness. Let's not go into a position that we are regretting. I absolutely endorse what's been said about the mental health champion, and I would always support Councillor Woodward in my position as a county councillor and as a district councillor. If there's anything I can do, signing up to the mental health declaration, I think it needs to be done straight away. So really, for the moment, Chair, I think I really actually said enough. But if we are actually going to put some real meat on the bone with this, and I do truly always think from the lens of the people of East Devon who we represent, I think they would endorse this because they are struggling, their families are struggling. We know there's an increased chance of domestic violence and all the strains with it. We've seen some additional restrictions gone in from central government over the last 24 hours. The anxieties are building. We don't know where this is going to end. But I tell you what, if our brains are not engaged and we're not able to function, we as members, as an example, could be making decisions which are not when we're in the fit and best place to be. We need to lead by example here. And as I have supported with the climate emergency officer, I just think bring it on. These are equally as important as the other, the climate and where we are with COVID. Thank you very much for your indulgence.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Hall. Right, now before I ask for any thoughts about the recommendations, can I just ask Andrew Ennis if he has any comments he'd like to add to what's already been said by committee members? Andrew?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, would like to come back on a couple of points. Really pleased to sit and listen to that debate. Actually, that was really empowering. I would love to work with you on this. My concern right from the beginning is how are we going to do it? If we're going to do it, we've got to do it properly. So yeah, I mean the member champion is a fantastic idea, and would love to work with the member champion. As raised by Councillor Miller, perhaps not quite ready to sign up yet. I think we need some officer resource to work with that member champion, just to scope out exactly what is expected of us and what we do need to do this properly. And I'm afraid I simply can't do that through existing budgets. The housing revenue account funded officer will be fantastic, but that won't go across the piece. That won't be able to be spent on anything other than the benefit of our own tenants, as I understand the rules. So we would need to increase that resource with the general fund. But if there is support for finding that budget, very happy to work something up in the budget cycle this year, so we can start to deliver something really good. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much indeed, Andrew. Right, okay.
Chair, you've got Councillor Jackson who'd like to say something.
Thank you, Sue. Okay, Councillor Jackson, please.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you. Yes.
Yeah. Sorry, my microphone's quite quiet sometimes. One of the points I was going to pick up on actually is something that Andrew's just touched on. I very much welcome the Housing Review Board's decision to put in a mental health officer for the purpose of the tenants of East Devon. But I think we are like many organisations where we often run the risk of operating within departments rather than joined up thinking where we can share resources. And I think this is one of those occasions where we really need that officer resource and that knowledge base to be integrated into many different aspects of how we operate as a council, both in terms of HR, in terms of our members, but also in terms of policy setting and the wider district. So I think it's really important that we do take an approach to try and find that additional resource. I think it would be brilliant if that new officer within the housing department is that main central point. I think they're the primary touch point probably for a lot of those that are most likely to be affected. But I think that needs to be spread further. That needs to be someone that's also operating within other departments. And I don't think that's something we should be neglecting to explore, because if anyone else here has had the same experience I've had over the last few months, I've seen a massive upswing in the casework that I've been taking on, where there are clearly underlying mental health issues as a result of the pandemic. And we just can't afford to ignore that. Many thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Okay, now we need to consider the recommendations on page 7. Would someone like to propose some recommendations, please, for Cabinet? Sue, do we have anybody who's willing to step forward?
Councillor Hall would like to say something, and Councillor De Sarum.
Okay, right. Well, let's go to Councillor Hall first, please. Councillor Hall.
Thank you, Chairman. As I said in my preamble, with recommendations 1, 2 and 3, I recommend that they go to Cabinet. But when it comes to item 4, to ensure that officers, employees and members are signposted towards appropriate support if and when necessary. Also, to send out surveys to all officers, employees and members on their own health and well-being, so we can capture on how we are doing as a unit. Additionally, that we have additional resources found, and as Councillor Gazzard has already suggested, if necessary from reserves, that we can go out and get an additional officer regarding the skill sets which is necessary, because as it's already been pointed out, the housing review account can only spend on certain things. And I would urge you all, please support my recommendation, especially 4. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gazzard, you wanted to speak? Sorry, I beg your pardon. I've got that wrong. That's Councillor De Sarum. I'm sorry. I beg your pardon.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I really, I think Councillor Hall really said it all most effectively, particularly as Councillor Gazzard has mentioned, that in recognition that every life matters. And I think we should ask Cabinet to consider looking at the resources from the General Fund in order to support this. I mean, even if it was on a temporary 1-year basis subject to review, because that way the following year we could go back and say that we can or cannot afford it. So I think that's what would be my recommendation, that we would look at this and maybe do it for a 12-month period in order to see where we're at the end of 12 months. Thank you.
Okay. Are you prepared to second Councillor Hall's proposal?
Yes, I'm prepared to second it. And obviously I've made that addition for at least the next 12 months if members think that's suitable.
Okay. Sue, do we have anybody else wishing to speak?
Councillor Gazzard wanted to speak earlier. I don't know if he's still.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Okay.
Councillor Gazzard, sorry. Yes, please.
No, it's just to say, Chair, that I totally fully endorse everything that's been said, and the sooner we can get it under control and get on and do the work that it's supposed to be doing, all well and good. And I'm more than happy if I can be of any help to Tony. Just let me know, Tony.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Right. Shirley, can you confirm the wording of the proposal, please, that we're about to vote on?
Councillor Wood would like to come back, I think, with a comment.
Oh, okay.
So I was just going to. I was sorry to ask, could the wording be repeated, because I didn't catch it all.
Yes, hopefully. Shirley, can you repeat the wording, please, of the proposal?
Councillor Hookway, I'm the lead for tonight, not Shirley. But
apologies.
Yeah, I'm going to have to ask Councillor Hall to repeat it because I didn't catch the entirety of the first element, I'm afraid, which was about the signposting. I got as far as to ensure officers and members are able to be signposted, and then you moved on to the second one. So I didn't finish the first one. If you,
through you, Chair, on this point, for clarification with Henry, as an interim, the officers, employees and members are signposted towards the appropriate support if necessary.
Okay, thank you.
Is that clear?
So, yeah, to enable officers and members to be signposted towards appropriate support if necessary, send out surveys to all officers, members to capture information, to capture health information, particularly in relation to mental health. And then there's an additional resources or go out to get additional officer support. If I may, Chair, through these, it's just to note, I think, really, that the recommendation from the HRB that will go to the next cabinet meeting, it does seem quite a different role from the one I think that members have been talking about this evening, which is about obviously supporting mental health specialist support workers for the housing services team and to be funded from the HRA. And as Andrew Ennis pointed out, they are different functions. So I think if you are going to make recommendation, you need to be, I think they're discreet, but I think probably more appropriately, bearing in mind the HRB one, is actually Cabinet are really asked to consider scoping the two roles, essentially, I think you're probably going to be looking at in terms of what they will be specifically doing and what the finances will be, and then obviously to consider whether that's appropriate from there. So if you're happy for some wording around that, because I think really Cabinet are going to have to scope the particular functions of the two roles and where the money's going to come from, because there's going to be different budgets. But I don't think you can really infect the HRB recommendation, but I think you need to acknowledge as a committee that Cabinet are going to have to think about that one a bit more. But if you're happy, we can say that Cabinet are requested to scope mental health roles within the organisation and to consider the specific role and the budgetary implications of it. Something along those lines, if you're happy with that.
Yes. Okay. Councillor Woodward had his hand up. Do you want to say something, Councillor Woodward?
Yeah. Can I just check then Henry's understanding of whether it does go towards appointing a mental health member champion, because that's not mentioned in the recommendation 4, and whether we do sign up to the challenge or not. I don't think we've covered that matter.
Yes, and actually, whilst you say that, Councillor, if you don't mind, through you, Chair, that item 7 actually also includes the healthy weight declaration. That isn't a separate item. There's been no discussion about the healthy weight declaration yet either, so you might need to come back to that. But we can park the final recommendation on mental health and move on to healthy weight. So just touching on what you said, yes, there's nothing in the recommendation at the moment. It's totally within the right of the committee to recommend the appointment of a mental health. I think lead member is probably a better form of wording, because that marries with the cabinet report that's going, that is on the agenda to do that. But obviously your recommendation will be after the cabinet have met. So as in your recommendation to cabinet will be at the next meeting, not the forthcoming meeting. But obviously we can note that you made the recommendation if that's what you choose to do. I hope that makes sense, because obviously you're a month behind reported to Cabinet, but obviously we can verbally update the Cabinet. And as for the declaration, I think the same issue arises in that you can make the recommendation to Cabinet that the Council sign up to it. I think the issue is about whether it needs to be further scoped. You just need to consider whether or not you want to say that, or whether or not Cabinet will have to think about it on the basis of the recommendation you make. So yeah, both can be added if that's what the committee want.
Right. Well, in answer to your question about the Healthy Wealth Challenge, we've got two sets of recommendations. In view of the debate we've just had, I think we need to make our recommendation known and voted on now, and then move on to the Healthy Weight Declaration. Is that okay with you?
If that's what you like to do, Chair, that's absolutely fine.
Yes. Okay.
Sorry, I didn't want you to think you'd sort of move on and suddenly it would not be dealt with. That was all.
No, I think we must deal with the mental health first. Now I can see some hands up. Sue, we got people who wish to speak, please.
You have, Chair. Councillor Hall, Councillor Jackson and Councillor Gazzard.
Okay, let's do Councillor Jackson first, please. Can you unmute Councillor Jackson, please?
Oh, I should try to. Oh.
Yeah, I just wondered whether it would be worth adding on if Councillor Hall and Councillor Desarum would be happy to, with regards to the suggested wording, whether there's not only signposting officers and members to appropriate resources if they need it, but whether there is any mental health training that could be made available to members and staff to do through the online portal that we currently have, because it strikes me that we're all quite, well, a lot of us are maybe ill-equipped to deal with people approaching us who have mental health issues, and this could take a little while to scope and put into place the champion and a new staff member. So I just wonder whether that's a consideration that we ought to be adding in. The only other point I had was in relation to what Henry said around lead members. I've just read through the Cabinet agenda reports, and I think they are referred to as member champions still, Henry. I don't
sorry, have I got it the wrong way around again?
Yeah, I think so.
Beg your pardon.
No problem. And that was all. So just if Councillor Hall would be so minded to include that.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Hall.
Thank you again, Chair. Picking up on Councillor Jackson's point, online learning, there is mental health first aid as an example. You're absolutely right. We as members, with an ever-changing, evolving role what we undertake. I mean, I've been an elected member since 2015. Oh my, how it's changed so much in 5 years. But I do think there is a need for a broad understanding of members, that we know how to approach any given situation, that we're able to, at the very least, signpost. Because I'm very mindful that I get approached on things, but I'm not a clinician. But I do have knowledge of poor mental health, and I do know that it can actually become mental illness rapidly. Where the biggest problem is a lot of people, if they've got poor mental health and they've drifted into mental illness, they haven't even recognized it because it's become and encompassed them before they even know it. And then you're at crisis. So I do welcome the area about mental health first aid. It is very valuable training. I've had it in the workplace. I've had it in other areas as well. And it is something which I feel encompasses and strengthens us as the members. But obviously, when I'm approached about these areas, I'm very careful in how I go about it. But going back to what Henry was saying, the recommendations to Cabinet, I do not want us to drift the Housing Review Board needs to stand alone. I don't think Cabinet should be discussing this, considering it as part of this. That is Housing Review Board recommendation. That stands alone under the financial support of the Housing Revenue Account. This needs to be as it is, with recommendation for extra resources regarding mental health officer support. Now, this is why, in part, going on to the next subject, Chair, which I will pause, I'm not going to go into that, is about these surveys, which I've said about health and well-being. That covers both the mental health and the Healthy Weight Challenge and everything else what we're undertaking. Now, if we're going to negate any turn of direction or resources going forward, we've got to understand what the people are actually going through at the moment. The Housing Review Board have absolutely bang on put this officer out there, going to put them out there to support the tenants who live on our housing stock. This is a separate issue. So I would really encourage you to stay with my earlier recommendations on item 4, so that it encompasses everything what we're trying to achieve collectively. Thank you.
Right, okay. So Henry, does that make position a bit more clear for you?
Yes, Chair. Sorry, I wasn't advocating the sort of the roles being subsumed into each other or anything. All I was trying to do is that Cabinet are going to end up with 2 recommendations on its agenda at the next meeting in relation to mental health appointments, and it was just for to bring to the Cabinet's attention that your decision is cognizant of the fact that the HRB have also made a recommendation in relation to mental health officers or support. So if the fourth element I've got now will be to sort of picking up on what you're all suggesting, is to ensure officer members are signposted towards appropriate support if necessary. So that's reflecting their own well-being, if you like. Send out surveys to all officers and members to capture information in relation to mental health. And then the wording I've got is that Cabinet are requested to consider appointing a lead officer to promote and support mental health within the organisation, in conjunction with considering the request to appoint a mental health officer in the housing service. And then finally, that member officers receive more bespoke training in relation to mental health. And just in relation to that final one, there is training in relation to mental health. There is an e-learning module that the officers are all obliged to take, but I do accept it's quite wide-ranging, and it's more so in relation to sort of the equalities duties and the public sector equality duty than it is potentially the bespoke element of mental health that obviously you're all focusing on tonight. So that's what I would recommend you have for the 4th element if you're amenable, Councillor Hall, as proposer and as the committee.
May I come back just briefly?
Yes, please, yes.
Henry, I agree with everything what you said, except for at the very beginning. Just additionally, as an interim, ensure officers, employees and members are signposted towards the appropriate support, because that's the start, that's the here and now, then the surveys, and everything. The first 2 can be covered up very quickly.
Right. Now, Sue, I believe we've got 2 people who wish to speak.
Yes, Councillor Gazzard and Andrew Ennis.
Okay, right. Councillor Gazzard.
Thank you, Chair. It's a question to Henry, please. Just for my clarification, will these proposals be going to the Cabinet meeting on the 30th?
No, because the agenda has been published, so they will be going to the October meeting. That's what I was trying to highlight, because you could have a discrepancy with the HRB minutes going next meeting and then these minutes going to the meeting after that, but they're not. They'll both be going to the October meeting.
Right. Yeah. Thank you for that. I'm just concerned that means that we miss another month then, don't we, for it before this even gets considered, and things aren't going to get any better. But no, thanks for that clarification.
Right. Andrew Ennis.
Thank you, Chair. So there were just a couple of points following that debate. Henry's more or less covered one of them for me, which was to just emphasise that irrespective of anything we agree today, there is already a programme of training for staff, particularly part of our Happy Healthy Here programme. We have done both e-learning and more hands-on mental health awareness training, and that's something I would see as continuing to do irrespective of any decisions today. And I think it's a really good suggestion that that's rolled out to members as well. The other point I wanted to make is that I'm not sure how extensively we can fulfill the recommendation that we carry out the staff survey as drafted, primarily because I don't feel at the moment we've got in-house the expertise to draft the right questions, to necessarily interpret people's responses and to respond appropriately. We might do, but we've got to do some work on it. It's certainly not something I know exactly how I would sit down and do it. It's not an amateur's job. We need some professional help to do that survey correctly. Very happy to take that piece of work away and do it, but there will be some resources, I suspect, to be able to deliver that particular recommendation.
Right, thank you. Councillor Hall.
Going back to, first of all, Councillor Gallagher's area of saying about September Cabinet, Henry has actually said, and I've seen it, that the agenda has been set, but can this not actually be raised as a matter of urgency at September's Cabinet meeting? There's one. The second area, on what Andrew Ennis was saying about surveys, we all like to work on partnership working. I know for an absolute fact that surveys have been sent out at Devon County Council to all employees. I'm sure that officer to officer inquiries, and I'm sure that Devon County would be more than willing to consider sharing best practice, what you would say is surveys which are, let's be honest about it, very similar in what you officers do on different jobs admittedly, but I'm sure that's an area would bring some meat to the bones very quickly. It's just a consideration, but I do feel it's officer to officer. We need this for them to be fleshed out.
Okay, right, thanks so much indeed. Right, okay, right. Well, Henry, do you want to go through the wording again just so that our members are absolutely clear as to what they're voting on, please?
Yes, certainly. Perhaps I just answer Councillor Hall's question first. So the minutes will be ready, and I mean, essentially, I'm sure the leader can be asked if he's willing to have the minutes added to the agenda as a late item, if you like, just have them added for consideration. So that can be picked up if the committee are so minded. So the wording the recommendation will be to, I won't repeat it, but points 1, 2, and 3 on page 7 are agreed, and then on an interim basis to ensure officers and members are signposted towards appropriate support if necessary. Send out surveys to all officers and members to capture information in relation to mental health, but obviously appreciating what Andrew Ennis has said on that. The third is that Cabinet are requested to consider appointment of a lead officer to promote and support mental health in the organisation in conjunction with their consideration of the request to appoint a mental health officer within the housing service. And the member officers receive more bespoke training on mental health.
Just to come in briefly, Chair, the leader's just told me to read out this message because he can't get in technical difficulties. Just to tell the committee that I can't speak, but I'm willing to receive both the Housing Review Board and overview minutes at the Cabinet meeting next week. So he's agreed with that.
Oh, good. Oh, thank you very much indeed for yes, that's very helpful. Okay, good. Right. Okay.
Sorry, if I may, Chair, on that basis. So if those minutes are going to the next meeting, you may well want to include the recommendation about the member champion, mental health. Oh, for goodness sake, mental health member champion.
Indeed. Yes.
You may. Councillor Hall's nodding, so I think that's probably acceptance of that being added to the recommendations. His recommendation, okay. if agreeable.
Right. Good. Okay. I think we're now in a position to take a vote. Okay, good. So
sorry, go on, Chair.
What I was going to say was this. So committee members, would you please vote either yes with the green tick or no with the red cross at the bottom of the participants list. If a recorded vote is No, we're not doing a recorded vote. That's okay. Right. So, Sue, can I ask you, please, if you can deal with the vote now, please?
Okay.
Right.
I don't think everyone's voted just yet, Chair. Give them a few seconds to do that. Okay. Hi. At the moment, we've got 10 members of committee voting yes and none saying no, voting no. So that looks like it's carried.
Thank you very much, Sue. Okay, right, thank you. Okay, so let's move on now, please, committee, to consider the healthy weight declaration. Okay, if I can call on Andrew, please. Andrew Ennis, could you just lead us into that one, please?
Happy to, Chair. Can I just check that I've successfully unmuted myself again?
Yes, you have, yes.
Okay. What I thought might be helpful is just to sort of scoot through this one. I've taken a lot of your time already, and just have a think about the commitments that would be required. I think, again, it's one of those areas of work professionally we'd be really happy to be part of. I see nothing wrong with making the declaration. However, there are 14 very specific commitments that we have to sign up to. A lot of them are actually okay, but there are one or two that I think might be quite onerous. So if we scoot through them in some sort of order, we're very happy to engage with the food and drink sector to encourage them to be more responsible, and to think about the energy value, the calorific value, the fat and sugar content of what they're selling, and so on. But I'm not convinced now's the time to bother them with a lot of this stuff. Maybe they're struggling with a few other things, so I just urge a sense of caution on that one. I would certainly think the developing commercial partnerships with the food and drink sector generally is, again, a really good thing to do. Something we have talked with our growth, development, and prosperity team. It's, again, not necessarily the right time to launch into that, but in the future, yes, we'd be really happy to do that. Our own public buildings, again, we should be setting an example. I think we don't do an awful lot of food retailing, but through our partner LED, there is still work to be done if you look at their vending machine offer and so on. But again, not entirely sure this is the right time to be doing that work. Public access to fresh drinking water, absolutely ongoing piece of work, really positive, really supported. I think we should continue to do that, so I've no problem with that one at all. Supplementary guidance for hot food takeaways, promoting healthy alternatives. Yeah, we've talked to planning colleagues about this. I think we should have a number of supplementary planning guidance documents. I don't know if this one with their priority, but I would like it to be. So, with some cooperation from colleagues, very happy to do that one as well. Planning together with partners, including the NHS and Health and Wellbeing Board and so on, to take opportunities to promote healthy waste. Yeah, of course, it's the day job. It's intrinsic in our own public health plan anyway. So yes, big tick on that one. Protecting children from inappropriate advertising. Yeah, I think it would be a relatively simple ask to make sure that we've got our own house in order and we're not advertising anything we shouldn't be advertising on our own land. So no problem with that. Action at national level. Yeah, we support that. We run programs. Our own public health project officer does promote things on the back of national campaigns. So again, that's a positive. Food and drink provided at public events should include healthy options. Again, really good thing to do, but with the sector struggling, I'm not sure it's the right time to put pressure on them to do that just at the moment, but in the long term, yes. Health and well-being of our own staff and talking to them about what constitutes healthy weight and how we might support that. Yeah, it is part of Happy Healthy here. I think we're already doing it. Investing in health literature of our local citizens, helping to make them healthy choices. Again, yeah, big tick. We could always have more more if we had more money. You know, we can do limited amounts of work, but we are doing some, and I think it possibly would be construed as enough for a campaign like this. Healthy eating messages and consistent messages. Yeah, I think so. I think we get stuff out there at certain times of year, and I think we can continue to do that work. So I think that's an element of the campaign where we would be viewed positively. Consider how strategies and plans for regeneration and town planning could positively impact on physical activity. That's a big ask. I'm not sure we're quite ready. We're certainly talking to planning colleagues about how that could be delivered, but I think that would need a change in planning policy. That's going to be a while coming, I think, so I'm not sure we could deliver that one straight away. And finally, monitoring progress. Yes, we can. Whatever we're doing, we report back. That's part of our discipline in the team. As you all know, Helen Wareham reports annually on the public health outcomes, and I think that's a yes. So overall, I think we've got some good work already ongoing, but I'd have some concerns at this stage about actually signing up to all 14 commitments, because I don't think it's the right time to step up in certain areas to deliver the complete programme. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Andrew. Right, I will now invite non-members to speak by raising their virtual blue hand. Once non-members have spoken, I will then invite members of the committee to speak. Sue, do we have any non-members wishing to speak?
Yes, Councillor Miller would like to speak, Chair.
Thank you, Sue. Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Chair. You cannot but admire the sentiment of this motion brought forward by Councillor de Saram, and I certainly do. But agreeing with all of what Andrew Ennis just said, it's worth pointing out to the committee, and I think this is a really important point, that there are no councils except county councils that have signed this declaration, which would suggest to me that this declaration is aimed at county councils, at upper tier councils. And for me, it just feels like it's not really one for us. If there's not one district council in the country, and I have checked this, no middle tier, no borough council, no city council, no district council who've signed it, I really would sort of urge caution, I guess, on the committee. There's lots in the declaration where officers and the committee and the council can accept the spirit of it, and in some of the parts of the declaration we're already doing it. But as Andrew Ennis said, I think it would be a step too far to suggest we'd sign this declaration. And I go back to the point, but I have to leave you with it. We'd be setting a precedent. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Are there any other non-members, Sue?
I can't see anybody, Chairman.
Okay, right. In that case, I'll ask members of the committee. Any members? Councillor de Saram, you better respond to Councillor Miller to begin with.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm here with the chair. Thank you so much. Yeah, it's very good to be able to reply to Councillor Miller, and you've heard Andrew's comments. I must congratulate Andrew and Helen for their superb bit of note making. It's been a very relevant document to study, and I can understand the recommendations that have been made on the points 1 to 4. And I'd like to add that to note that our current priorities don't offer us the scope to afford additional resources at this time. And we would look again to see what to do within 6 months, because both Andrew and I think Paul were saying that there was issues to be done at this moment in time because we weren't quite ready for it. So I'd like to make sure we don't forget about it and put it back forward for, say, 6 more months to continue to get more scope to be done so that we can get as much of it done as possible. I appreciate that one must be cautious, but I must confess that sometimes I can be very reckless and positive about what I do, because I think it's important to get things done for the good of your community as quickly as you can. So I understand that there's 14 commitments, and I think we're going to appoint a sports and wellbeing champion from our vice chairman today, and I'm wondering whether our current vice chairman, who's going to be the sports and I think wellbeing champion, would like to look at it further with me and see if we can get up more of the 14. I mean, we've probably got about 6 or 7 or whatever at the moment that we've done, and it's just a question of working there. So I am happy to park it but not to drop it, to be clear on that. And I understand what Councillor Miller said, and it's quite right that an upper tier hasn't got involved with it, but I think we need to work towards getting as near to it as possible, particularly as we have the future with possibly a unitary council potentially in the future, and that's an example of what we might get if we don't join ourselves up. I'm not saying we will get a unitary, but I'm just saying that this is the case of example where there are various tiers, and I think that we must try to get as close to the upper tier as we can, so that way we can publicly show people that we are working well together as a smooth, well-oiled machine, even though there are many tiers of local government. So for that reason, I'm happy to accept the recommendations on the basis that we would agree to look at it again to see how many more we could do of the 14, provided Councillor Johns was able to work with us, assuming she is appointed to that role, which I'm sure she will be. And I wish her much success. And I thank you for your indulgence, Chair, and I'll leave it to other members to say any more.
Right, okay. We'll go to Councillor Johns as she was named, but I do have I'll say something as well in a moment after we've heard from Councillor Gazzard after Councillor Johns. So Councillor Johns.
Thank you. I think it's a very well written report. I thank Andrew for his work on that. I do think it is something that is important, but I also agree with what's been said at the moment with COVID, etc., and with lots and lots of businesses suffering already. I think the last thing we want to do is, technically throw some giant hypothetical spanner right into the middle of their works when they're all trying to keep their businesses running. I agree with Councillor de Saram that it is something that we do need to keep looking at. And, we put it on the back burner, as it were, smouldering away, and revisit it in 6 months or so, depending obviously on what happens, because everything's a bit fluid at the moment, technically. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Johns. Councillor Gazzard, I see your hand is up.
Thank you, Chair. Excellent report. I like all the different parts in there. And I would agree with what Councillor de Saram has said, is that, and what Andrew Ennis has said, it's not particularly the correct time now to try and bring in all these new changes. So if Councillor de Saram is recommending that we not park it, but find a better word than parking it for 6 months, I'll be happy to second that, Chair.
Okay. Now, looking at Councillor Hall next, please. Councillor Hall.
Thank you, Chair. I think it was a really, really well written report, as already been said. With the last subject, with the approach of hopefully Cabinet and full Council will accept additional resources for the Housing Review Board with mental health, that could have a very positive impact to healthy weight, because we do know it's a vicious circle. You can have issues and then that can have an impact on your mental health and the full circle. So I do feel also with the Vice Chairs potentially going to be the lead for sport. I think this is, again, helping the solution, but we need to ensure that we are signposting all the residents of East Devon to healthy activities, because we've got to be mentally fit, we've got to be physically fit, because we have recently seen there is some sort of correlation that what I've seen on the media about weight and the chances of COVID-19 have a massive impact on their well-being. So I am in agreement with what has been said, but I also feel that we're negating some of these issues from what we've already discussed tonight and with what going forward with the lead champions. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Jackson, please.
Chair, I was just going to come back to Councillor Gazzard.
Councillor Jackson, can you speak up, please? I can't hear you.
My microphone's terrible. It drops out. I was just going to come back to Councillor Gazzard and Councillor de Saram in support of what they're saying. I perhaps would suggest revisit or review would be the right wording.
Okay, thank you. So do we have any other hands up? No, don't we do we? No, okay.
We don't at the moment, Chair.
No, okay. Councillor de Saram, could I make a suggestion that to perhaps make life a little bit easier, a bit more convenient for officers, that we put the healthy weight declaration onto the forward plan, which is the final item on the agenda, and put a date on it and then revisit it.
Happy to be guided by your thoughts, Chairman. I think as long as we don't let it slip, because members have said how important it is. So yes, that's a very good idea, and I do think that's excellent, and I'd be happy to go along with that. Absolutely.
Okay, right, good. Well, thank you. Yes, no. Well, if we put it on the forward plan, it won't be. Where's Henry? Where's he gone? I can't see you, Henry. Is he
Yes, I'm
missing?
here.
All right. So if we put it to the forward plan, do we need to take a vote on that?
Well, I think you. No, I don't think so. I think you just pick it up again at the forward plan section.
Right. Okay. So that means we will do that. We will put the healthy weight declaration onto the forward plan. Right. Good. So I think that means then that we can now move forward to item 8, the forward plan. Right.
Can you agree? Can you agree the recommendations that were put forward then?
Oh, I see. Sorry. Oh, yes. Okay. All right. So you want us to vote on that? Yes.
Yes, please.
All right. Okay. Sorry. Okay. So committee, can you please vote to show that you agree with the 4 recommendations that are shown on page 9 in connection with the healthy weight declaration? Sue, over to you, please.
Nick, can I just ask whether or not Councillor Moulding has his blue hand raised already? Is he wanting to put something in, or is he voting already?
Councillor Moulding, are you voting already?
I am not voting, of course, because I'm not on your committee, Chairman, but I was getting in readiness, wanting to speak on matters for the forward plan.
Oh, okay, right, okay, right. So, Sue, then if you could just clear the blue hands, please, and then we can vote, please, on the recommendations on page 9. Yeah, right, so if you could all please vote by pressing the green tick if you approve, and the red across if you are against.
Okay, Chair, it looks like everyone's finished voting. I've got 9 voting in favour and nobody's saying no.
Okay, good. Thank you very much indeed. Right, okay. Okay, Henry, is that right?
Yes, thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed. Right, so we will now move on to agenda item 8, the forward plan. The forward plan is on page 20 of your papers. The committee is asked to revise and agree priorities for the forward plan following the impact of COVID-19 on the council's work. Regarding scoping future work, officers have drafted proposal and scoping forms for members to submit, which will assist with the scoping of work on the forward plan. Right, okay, so before I ask people to speak, can I just make a just go to the forward plan myself? There it is. Just refer to a couple of items. In the forward plan for the 12th of November, I have included this section on the High Street at Taff and the Our Towns scheme. Rob Murray will be available for that meeting, and he will talk and give us an update on that. I thought that was very important that we revisited that in view of the present situation. And also we have to think about the draft financial strategy. Having had the letter from Mr. Pemberton, we do need to think about an item on climate change and particularly the rising sea levels. We also have to think about commercialisation strategy, which was raised in the 15th of January, a joint overview and scrutiny meeting, and also the consultancy spend. Okay, right, having said that, over to the committee. Anybody got any thoughts, please? Right. First of all, can I have non-members who may wish to speak, please, Sue?
Councillor Moulding looks like he's put his hand down. I'm not sure if he wants to speak or not, but we also have Councillor Young, Councillor King, Councillor Tsar, sorry, they're members, beg your pardon. So we have Councillor Moulding and Councillor Young.
Okay, Councillor Young, please.
Thank you, Chair, for allowing me to speak. I'd like to answer and cover a few of the issues that Mr. Pendleton had made in his letter. I understand that most of you have had emails from him over the last 6 months. I have actually received 11, all about Sidmouth Beach Management Plan. Myself and officers have made contact with him, offered to meet, and other Sidmouth councillors again have offered to meet and discuss. However, he has declined any meetings and just wishes to continue writing emails. We're providing him with reassurances that we're going forward with the beach management plan, and I can confirm that we have recently managed to obtain full funding for the scheme, so all systems are go there. There are a couple of, I'm not going to pick up on all the points that he made, but I'll pick up on a few. He says it has appeared clear to many for a long time now that EDC have little or no intention of doing what is needed for Sidmouth, unless there is no choice or option. This has been a long known history. Sidmouth's long-term residents, locals, local fishermen know this and have long been silenced. Well, I can say that there has been staged events, press releases, and anyway, most interested groups are members of the forum and attend most of the meetings. With everyone in Sidmouth seemingly switched on to our new technology, such as Facebook, Twitter, and the internet, I don't agree that all of Sidmouth has been silenced. Now, they have been very vocal over the last couple of months. He says that there is endless lack of progress and lack of accountability taken by EDC. The raised hopes followed by additional hoops and hurdles continually put in place, many of which have little or no foundation, apparently conjured up by to prevent anything happening. The length of time for the issues of sea defences at Pennington Point and on East Beach to be effectively addressed, being one example for which you are now responsible, meaning East Devon. Regarding Pennington Point and East Beach, after the fall in February, we did confer with the Environment Agency on emergency measures, and we did inform Mr. Pendleton the reasons why the Environment Agency could not classify the work as emergency works. Therefore, any works that had to be done would have to have been done with obtaining planning permission and doing full plans, etc., etc. Another point that he made that I'll just pick up on, what is required for Pennington Point and East Beach is revetment and rock islands. This was clearly known in the 1990s. The cost is lower than present plans. Few people feel the present plans will be adequate or effective. Well, the present costs of the preferred option is around 8.5 million. And we've now got full funding for that. A single island will cost 13.5 million, and we will need 4 of them. So clearly, we'll be needing 40 odd million to be able to provide him with the what he wants is these offshore islands. He also wants rock eventments, but that would do nothing to help with the flooding or protect Sidmouth Town Beach. In fact, rock eventments have been shown at Seaton to have failed with the Old Beer Road now fallen away. So rock aventment is not the answer to all cases. So we would have to do very thorough work to prove that rock aventment would actually work on that. So that's all I can say on the subject of the letter. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Well, nice to have a progress report. Okay, Councillor Moulding, I think, is next.
Chairman, I presume you finished the debate on the Sidmouth beach management plan?
Well, we haven't talked about that. We have just responded to Mr. Pemberton's letter.
Mr. Pemberton, yeah. So mine was a different matter for the forward plan, and it's a pity that Councillor Allen isn't with you this evening, because I know he was very keen to promote an East Devon economic recovery plan. And in these very difficult and unusual times, it is something which I believe the District Council should consider very seriously, and indeed put it on the forward plan as an urgent item at the earliest possible opportunity. Now, this has been discussed with Henry Gordon Lennox, who suggested that it wasn't a matter for scrutiny, but would be more appropriate as an item for overview to consider. And it really needs to look at the economic impact assessment of COVID-19. And the key essentials will be looking at priority sectors such as agriculture, fishing, food and drink, construction, leisure, hospitality, tourism, aviation, of course, and all those matters which we know are going to need to revitalise as we start to think about coming out of the pandemic. And I think we have to be in readiness for coming out of the pandemic. It's no good to say, oh, let's wait until the pandemic is over and then we'll see what we can do. We need to create a plan. And East Devon needs to be at the forefront of that. And therefore, I would suggest that an economic impact assessment of COVID-19 should be carried out at the earliest possible opportunity by putting this item as an urgent item within the forward plan. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Okay. I think some of the items that you've just addressed, Councillor Moulding, will undoubtedly occur when we have a report from Rob Murray. But I take note of what you've said. Look forward to Councillor Allen speaking and raising this issue at the next meeting, because we do discuss the forward plan at every meeting. I do share your concerns about the COVID-19 situation, and I think it's rather difficult to predict exactly when it's going to end, and that may make life rather difficult if we're going to start making predictions. But I have certainly noted your request. Thank you. Okay. I see we have anybody else wishes to speak.
Yes, Councillor Arnott, Chair.
Oh, Councillor Arnott, yes. Okay, right. Councillor Arnott, please.
Thank you, Chair. I couldn't make my blue hand work earlier, but it now is. I just wanted to address what Councillor Moulding has said. I couldn't disagree with any of it, of course. This was raised on email between members earlier last week, I think. So just to reiterate, we sit within Team Devon. Team Devon, Devon County Council led. Kerry Denton, who is the officer there who's responsible for many aspects of Devon's life, but in particular economy. She's particularly tasked with recovery, economic recovery at the moment. And as I explained briefly, I think in the email to all members, this is a vertically integrated effort because, of course, we'll have to work upwards to the local enterprise partnership as well in order to be able to draw down on government funds. I think, obviously, it's a good idea, and I imagine would come naturally in any case for this council to continue the work that it's been doing throughout the coronavirus crisis so far, to estimate what the economic damage has been so far and how we can best respond to a period of rebuilding the local economy. So that is true. So my view would be, of course, put it on Overview's forward plan, but I don't think you can probably wait until you have another Overview meeting. This work is happening already, and it's happening across the district, across the county, and across the region. So I hope that's helpful. But yes, of course, Overview, if it's so minded, should have a standing agenda item on this to make sure, as we understand how the next 6 months until, you know, the spring, which is what the Prime Minister has discussed, how we can best handle that. And clearly, we have got serious issues with tourism again, which has just had the worst spring and then the best summer it's ever had. And who knows what's going to happen in the autumn and the Indian summer. So there are a lot of things we do need to look at urgently. I wrote to our senior officers this afternoon to ask them to find out, and of course it will take, 24 hours at least, what the implications of the Chancellor's statement to the House were today in terms of, for example, whether businesses, if you remember, we dispersed the best part of, I think it was £48 million, then with another discretionary fund of £2.5 to £3 million to local businesses. And so I want to find out whether we're meant to be doing that again, and I don't think we know if we are yet, and whether we're going to have to repeat the whole cycle of what we went through in March, April, May and June to support businesses. So as soon as I've got an answer on any of that, I will of course let all members know. I hope that's helpful, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Arnott. Right. Are there any other comments from committee members about the forward plan, please?
Councillor Hall and Councillor de Sarum would like to speak.
Right, okay. Councillor Hall?
Thank you, Chair. And going on with what Councillor Arnott, as leader of District Council, was saying, and Councillor Moaning has said on the forward plan, could it be looked at, Chairman, that is spliced together with Rob Murray's involvement with Overview going forward? Because I think that would probably fit together. If it can be worded in there, I think that would satisfy the requirements here, because I think that the leader is actually right. This is an ever moving situation, what we have. At the same time, on balance, what Councillor Moding's saying, I think it needs to be there. But I think with the wording, with going forward with what Rob Murray's going to be doing, I think this would be appropriate, if so agreed.
Yes, of course, Rob Murray did produce a very effective economic report, which was presented to Overview last November. And I'm sure his report will refer to the present economic situation and what impact it's been having on high streets in our district. So I will add that.
Just the wording, it'd be great. And if you don't mind, I've got a suggestion for the forward plan, Chairman.
Yes, please.
There's been a lot of talk over the years, and it was raised that Housing Review Board. It's a shame Councillor Hayward's not here tonight, because he was very much involved in the debate at Housing Review Board about using the housing revenue account receipts to ensure that we're not having to hand back the government. We got a good track record of not handing it back to government, but we do need a substantial investment to ensure that we are A, providing affordable housing, and B, in the right location. Now, one thing what's been very dear to my heart, and as I see, again, as partner solutions, when I undertook a housing needs survey in 2015, a lot of my conversations with residents in the Axminster area, where we've got people who are living in council housing, who have brought up families, and they are now widowed or widowers living in one place, and they not necessarily would want to stay in those houses, and they don't probably afford to stay in those houses because it's expensive to heat, but they want to stay in their community. Now, assisted living units is something what I feel is part of the solution, and it helps people live independently for longer, so they have a very much enriched life. Now, over my right shoulder, as a crow flies, probably about 150 meters, we have one of the biggest assets that East Devon District Council owns, and that is First Avenue, which was the home of my beloved Millway Rise Football Club before they relocated to Cloakham Lawn Sports Centre. So I declare an interest there as chairman of Cloakham Lawn Sports Centre. Now, this area, I feel, is part of the solution, not only for the Axminster area, but for the wider East Devon area, because we could get a lot of units on there. We own the land, so there's the biggest cost. This is the biggest housing estate, as I understand it, in East Devon with housing stock. This is the absolute no-brainer where to look at these sorts of initiatives. And through you, Chairman, I would possibly like to draw in Debbie Meakin, because I was chairman of the Housing TAF quite a few years ago, that we were unable to get meat on the bones about using different concepts of building houses in the East Devon area. And it was a really big piece of work, and it really hasn't been very fruitful to date. But also, along with what we have as part of our armory, we have a housing company. So I would really encourage for this to be considered on the forward plan, because this could resolve some of our housing issues, and we could actually have units which are affordable, appropriate for people who most need them. Thank you very much, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Yes, I've written down housing needs on my copy.
If I may interject quickly, only just to say that the housing company TAF, which is or has been set up with Councillor Ledger chairing, is effectively undertaking a fair portion of that work, I think, in terms of the ability to use the company, but also to help deliver affordable housing within the district. And if I also may just ask, you said earlier about using the proposal form and scoping forms for bringing forward work to overview. At what point you may wish to invoke that, if I may put it that way, because obviously you've got a very large amount of work on the forward plan already, and the sort of the need for the committee to prioritise. If members are going to suggest work that isn't already on that plan, whether you might ask them to complete the proposal form, so at the next meeting you can then take it through the process. But I only say that, but obviously the main point really is that I think the housing company TAF, which is now established, is probably going to do the mainstay of that work. But those are just 2 points, if I may make them.
Okay. Yes. Well, thank you. Thank you for reminding me about that. I think because we haven't discussed the forward plan for over 6 months, I think it's quite right to put it to committee members to hear what they're thinking. So, Councillor Hall, please complete the form regarding housing needs. I think that would be a very helpful, and if you could forward it to me, please, that would be great. Right. Okay. Councillor Desarum is next, please.
Sorry, Chairman. Can I come back, please, Chairman? I got my hand up.
Sorry, yes, I'm sorry, I didn't see that. Go on.
Sorry.
What's the problem?
Thank you very much. Excuse my ignorance. A, I wasn't aware of any form. And secondly, if I felt the housing company was going to be undertaking this area of work about assisting living units, I wouldn't have suggested it tonight. Thank you. And please, can you forward on the form so I know what I'm doing and possibly some guidance, because I'm not the sharpest.
I believe that the forms were forwarded with the agenda. Is that right, Sarah? Were the forms forwarded, the scoping forms forwarded with the agendas?
Chairman, we're ready to show them on screen, actually. They weren't forwarded with the agenda.
Oh, they weren't. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, right. Okay, could you show them on screen then, please, Sarah?
Bear with me, Chairman. I'm just going to show them to you now.
Thank you.
Okay, hopefully members can see this is the proposal form. And what I can do at the conclusion of our meeting tonight is email this round to all members. So that gives you the opportunity to discuss on there what you feel the priority is, what the basis is, and there are a number of questions that you can fill in the answers to. If I'm scrolling too quickly for anyone, please do shout. Okay, Chairman?
Yes, thank you. Yes.
Would you like me to also show you the scoping document?
Yeah. Yes, please.
So this is also for members to bear in mind as a secondary level to your proposal is to have a think about what the work will actually involve. This is not new to a number of members. This has been in place with both overview and scrutiny committees for some time. So it's really to prompt members to think about what specific areas they want to explore, what is not covered, which is sometimes just as important. The desired outcome of the review, that's also very key. And then it also goes through a number of elements to think about, such as if there's already evidence that exists, some good examples, what experts you'll need, and the resources that will need to be undertaken. As I say, Chairman, I can share that with the members this evening.
Yes, please, if you would. Yes, thank you. Right. Okay.
Chair, if I may, just a quick question. I saw the document that we've just run through. Was there another one before that? Because I don't think we actually saw that on screen.
Yes, there should be a Word document, shouldn't there?
Debbie, I
Sarah,
don't think the proposal form came up, Debbie.
Okay, I can bring that back up. Bear with me.
Oh, Debbie's doing it.
Okay, so can you see that's headed up proposal form?
Yes, thank you.
Would you like me to just scroll through that, Chairman, slowly so that
Yes,
members
please.
can see that?
Yes, please. That would be great. Thank you.
And that's the form in full, Chairman.
Right. Thank you very much indeed. Okay. Right. So that.
If I may, so if it helps the members, the idea being that the proposal form, which is a fairly light touch form, is filled out, and then the committee will receive the proposal forms, and you will all debate and decide whether you want those ideas to go forward to full scoping, which was the first document you saw, and then the scoping document will enable the committee to decide its priorities and ensure that the forward plan, the dates of the meetings that the work will come forward, is able to be properly completed. So it's a sort of two-stage process. First one's quite light touch, and then the second one is more involved with the officer input in terms of helping fully scoping it. So I hope that just to help explain it, it started with scrutiny, but it also helps allow the committee to align its work programme to the sort of the council or the administration's initiatives in terms of bringing work forward at the right times, bearing in mind sort of tight resources and all the rest of it.
Thank you very much. Okay, could we, Sarah, please send those forms to every member of the committee, please?
Yes, thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Right,
Chairman, sorry to interrupt, Chairman. I just wonder if it's Councillor Moulding here. I just wonder if the proposal forms are available to all members of the council and not just members of the committee.
So through you, Chair, if I may. So the scrutiny forms I sent to the whole membership, and we will send them to the whole membership again for the overview. They're slightly different, but yes, and perhaps if it might be helpful, actually, I can send the whole lot en bloc again with just a reminder of the process, so that everybody's got all the forms in one place. Maybe that'll be helpful.
Yes, I've just looked on my system and I've got the proposal form for scrutiny, but I've never seen this proposal form for overview before.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Right, okay. Do we have any, Sue, do we have any further hands up for the forward plan at present?
Yes, we do. We have Councillor de Sarum, Councillor Hartnell, Councillor Jackson, Councillor King, quite a few. In fact, Councillor Hall and, yes, Councillor Hall, yeah.
Right, okay. So who was the first one you said? Sorry, was it just Councillor de Sarum?
Councillor de Sarum.
Right, Councillor de Sarum then, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I was going to say that I did attend the Budget Working Party meeting a week or so ago, and I think if I was paying suitable attention, I think they said the commercialisation strategy would be creating a TAF. I think one of the recommendations was that the Budget Working Party would set up some form of commercialisation TAF to examine that. So I'm not sure if it's helpful or not, whether we should delete that from our workload on the basis that a TAF is going to be set up. I mean, I may have misheard, but that was the gist of what I thought. And also following on from quickly what the leader said tonight about the tourism issues, I'd be happy to scope something on tourism, particularly about the loss of event money when people were going to put on events and obviously they didn't happen. So I think that's something that we could perhaps explore as well under the tourism heading. So that was really the issues that I wanted to raise with you. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor. I've put a cross next to commercialisation strategy. I'll double check that one. Okay, so Sue, who's next, please?
Councillor Hartnell.
Councillor Hartnell, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to pick up on the fact that this committee was receiving updates from the Governance Review Working Party, and there's nothing on the forward plan with regards to that. Obviously, COVID is going to make it slightly more difficult for us to visit other. I think the last meeting we had back in February, we was looking at visiting other councils to sort of learn and understand how they might do things differently and how we could learn from them. But it might be harder to do that. But I don't think we should forget that the governance review is still something that we've aspired to look at, and I think that should still be on the forward plan as a piece of work that should be coming back to overview at some point in the coming months.
Yes, it's a working party at the present time, and you're absolutely right that due to the COVID-19 pandemic, that those proposed visits to councils have been suspended for the time being. But it is still on the back burner, I can assure you of that. Okay.
So can I propose that it actually is retained on the forward plan then, so it, whilst on the back burner, it can still be ready to be brought forward?
Yes, indeed. Yes, yes, we can add it to that because it will be reported back at some point, but I can't give you any specific timeline at the present time.
Thank you, Chairman.
Right, okay. Sue, who's next, please?
Councillor King.
Councillor King, please.
Thank you, Chair. If I could comment, please, on the scoping form before it goes out, because I think it is lacking an element which really deserves attention, and that is that we have included in that form not just a question of what other work exists, what evidence is already available, but also who else is going down the same route, looking at the same matter, spending lots of duplicated resources, trying to find out the same answers that we might otherwise be looking for. So, and Councillor Arnott mentioned Kerry Denton and the COVID economic assessment. I worked with Kerry Denton for about 6 years in another organisation, the Regional Development Agency, when she was coming up through County Council. Not only is she extremely good, but she has a supporting team of many people that are extremely good, looking at economic activities, economic health, economic planning for the entire county. And so that has to be a more integrated approach than we could offer. So getting back to what I started with about the scoping form, it's very important that we know who else we can ride alongside with, let alone wait for their output and benefit from it. because that will help us be much more efficient with our resources and where we direct our efforts. Furthermore, we had to be careful about our scope. And there are some areas where, of course, we are in the way of economic development because we are a channel for government funding through to business. And I need to say this delicately, but obviously if a councillor feels fervently and energetically about a matter, to drive them to write a piece of paper all by themselves, I mean, good for them. And it has actually received a lot of respect because of the effort and the groundwork put in. But I'm sorry to say that if you compare the efforts of one person to an entire team, and you look at the contrasting output, you have to say that the team does do better because it is professional. It is just energetic and driven by not just enthusiasm, but idealism and concern. What I never want to see again in the council, if I may be outspoken, is the situation we had last autumn when we had some very good work done. I think it was under the general heading of poverty, and I think Libby was working on this. And then we had Mike Allen coming up with an alternative drive on the same area. And I think it might have been the overview committee, where we had those two adjacent drives for fairly identical purposes. And there was a debate and argument going on for about 20 minutes. In fact, I'm not sure how well it finished at all. But basically everyone was fiercely agreeing. But the fallout was that various aspects of it all were thwarted because of the clash between the efforts and the energy. So I think a bit of coordination is what I'm asking for. And when you come to the scoping form, if you can include a parking area for recording who else might also be looking in this area, even if it's slightly hypothetical, such as, and we know that County Council always is also looking into this. I think it's very important to include that aspect. It'll help us be much more accurate in how we implement the effort and resources which we deploy. Because my goodness, they are potent in East Devon. They're very effective. We just need to make sure they're put into the best target area. Thank you.
Yes, I agree with you, Councillor King. Thank you very much. Yes, okay. I will do my best to ensure that what you've suggested happens. Sue, who's next, please?
Councillor Hall, Chair.
Councillor Hall.
Thank you, Chairman. Going back to the form, I've been on overview since 2015. I've never, ever, ever seen a form. I don't know if it's something what I've missed, but I can never remember when I was vice chair that anyone was having to do it. I can understand it to where we are on scrutiny because we're looking back, but when we're looking forward, and with what's just been said by Councillor King, we as members have ideas. We as members are listening to our communities. We as members bring ideas to overview. And then if the committee agree, then the paid professional officers can put it together. Now, if you have a member, as what I was saying about assisted living, I could have information from when I ran the housing review tab, local knowledge, and so on. But if you've got a member who's just been co-opted or have only been in a place for a year, they're not going to know where to turn. And I just feel we have now gone from live chamber to online, which has been an adjustment. I think we've all done incredibly well. But what we do not want to do is miss this brainstorming, feeding off each other. It's very important going forward, because how on earth can somebody encompass and then know who to go to look who's done what work where. Because, as I said, the paid officers are the experts who can drive it, to bring it together. We have the democratic officers who have the skills and have been able to do this for many, many years. And most disappointingly, Chairman, there's been no debate about this form. I don't think any of my fellow members were aware of this was coming. And therefore, when we're actually looking at what the first discussion was, when Councillor Jung was saying about the beach management plan, does that mean he has now got to put it all on a form and submit a massive document? Does that also mean with what Councillor Moding was saying, and then we're putting it with Rob Murray's? Because you as the officers are the professionals who are able to glue it together so we can truly get some meat on the bones. So I'm not saying I'm against the form, but I'm a little bit perplexed how we got to this point, because I'm a little bit confused by it all. And like I said, I'm not being critical. I can understand the scrutiny because you were, as an example, we're examining the car parking. We get that, we're looking back, but forward thinking, we need to be able to be free thinkers and feed off each other as such. Thank you, Chair.
Chair, it might help if I can just the scoping report, which is the more complicated of the two, the bigger, the more in detail one, that is done by officers. There's no suggestion that members should be doing that one. And Chair, you've already said it, but I mean, we're quite happy to include a line in there about if that work is being done elsewhere. Because yes, it's relevant, isn't it? That if somebody's doing a lot of work, there's no point duplicating that. So very happy that that gets included on both forms. On the scoping paperwork for both scrutiny and overview. That's absolutely fine. So the scoping reports have been in existence for a long time, and the reason for those is to try and help the committee prioritise its work and make sure it's doing its work in the right way. So that isn't changing. All that's changing is that there's this initial proposal form that members complete so that the committee can see, rather than having to have it on the night, brought up in the context that we're doing it now, but members will see a proposals form, and then it can have the comments about whether it's just a very brief comment, whether or not it's within the power of the authority or anything like that. And then the committee will decide whether it wants those proposal forms to go forward to full scoping. That is done by the officers, and then that is brought back to the committee for the committee then to put it into the diary to say, yes, this is what we want to have done. And then those scoping reports are taken forward with officer reports that come back for debate. So the only bit that is actually really changing as to past practices is the proposal form, which just allows the committee the initial consideration of whether it wants to take forward this to a full scoping exercise, which can be quite time consuming as well. So it isn't fundamentally changing things, but the key thing for me is if you look at that forward plan now, there is a lot of work there for this committee, and there is a lot of work for this council to be doing, and it's about making sure that the right work is coming forward at the right time, because you can spend a lot of time doing work that actually doesn't benefit the council massively, and the council plan and the administration will have its desires in terms of the policies that will be coming forward, and it's just trying to help this committee make sure that it is doing its work in the right way, because there could be one item on the forward plan that one member wants to champion, but actually the rest of the council isn't particularly keen to do, and it's just making sure that the right work at the right time is coming forward. That's all it's about, and making sure resources are used as wisely as they possibly can be.
Yes, thank you, Henry. I think at this particular time, using resources wisely is a very important point. Okay, so do we have anybody else who wishes to speak?
You do, Chair. Councillor Johns, Councillor Jackson and Councillor Hall again.
Okay, Councillor Johns.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Firstly, I'd like to turn around and say that I actually quite like the forms as one of the relative newbies.
Oh, we've lost you. We've lost you, Councillor Johns.
Am I back?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. So as one of the relative newbies, as it were, I quite like the forms. Firstly, it tells you exactly what information is required. So there may be bits of information that you think you don't need and you do need. Secondly, it cuts down on all the waffle. So you have the forms there, they get sent in, everybody knows exactly what you're talking about. It doesn't go off on a tangent, so you've got no idea what people are talking about. 1 minute it's a chicken, then it's gone off to an egg, then it's gone off to a tomato. This way, got all the information in front of you. If you're not sure on something, we have the luxury of some fantastic officers and more experienced councillors that we can ask the questions. So I don't understand what the problem with the forms are. A form is perfect. If it's given to you and you don't understand a bit, you ask somebody. That's why we're councillors, because we are the intermediate bit between the people that don't know and the people that do know. And at the end of the day, you know, we're all capable of speaking, some of us more than others. So I think we should definitely go with the forms personally, and that's my view on it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Who's next, please, Sue?
Councillor Jackson.
Councillor Jackson, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm going to sit somewhere in the middle. I am form phobic as a rule. Some of you do and don't know that I'm dyslexic, and they give me palpitations, they terrify me. However, I do recognise that there is it's the most succinct way of getting the information that you need to make an informed decision in many cases. Not all cases, but many cases. So I do think that there is a need to have a form of this type. The one thing I would say, though, is there's a very big gap between a good form and a bad form. And I would be inclined, particularly as I've done market research activities which use forms, so I do speak from experience with this regard, I would be inclined to suggest perhaps we continue with the form we've got, but we put the form on the forward plan and review how we're getting on with it in 6 months' time, a year's time, and just see, actually, is it overkill? Does it not go far enough? Is it just not the right layout? Is there a better way of doing it? I wouldn't imagine that'd be a particularly big debate to have, but at least it's something we can bear in mind in the meantime while we're running with it. That would be my suggestion.
Thank you. I will say in response to your comments about forms that yes, they are known to drive people mad, and I'm quite happy for people to phone me up and talk about the form, and we'll talk it through and make sure we agree the form before it's presented to committee at some point. I also understand that officers are very concerned that they use theirs at a time as efficiently as possible, and I think that's very important at this particular time. So let's see if we can just go with the forms, and if we need to change them, we'll review that and change it at a later date. Okay, right. The only other thing that we must make sure that is on the forward plan is the healthy weight challenge, and I will write that down at the bottom there as well. All right. Okay. Right. So do we have any other speakers, please?
Councillor Hall, Chair.
Councillor Hall, then, please.
Yeah, Chair. While I've been sat here, I've been mulling over this governance review. Now, I don't personally feel that we have to wait until we can visit other councils. All the work is virtually done. We can do this over Zoom. We can meet other councils over Zoom. So I don't think we need to put unnecessary hurdles in the way. And one thing I don't want to do as an elected member is stand in the way of the absolute vital work, what the leadership group of East Devon District Council wanted to undertake, is the governance review. We can do this virtually. Let's not kick it in the long grass. We're all expecting it to be, and we are all welcoming it. So I just feel that this needs to be pushed and pushed through very quickly with the energy it initially had on the outset. And I can guarantee, Chair, this will be the last time I speak tonight. Thank you.
Always pleased to hear you speak, Councillor Hall. Right, the governance review is a working party. I need to go back and speak to Councillor Paul Miller as he's democracy and transparency or something like that coordinator. So I'll go back and speak to him about that, and I'll report back at our next meeting. Right, okay. So do we have any other speakers, please?
You have no other speakers, Chair.
Right, okay. So can I therefore assume that people are happy with the forward plan so far? Yeah, is that okay? Henry, do we need to do anything else now? Oh, he's gone. Henry,
No, I don't think so. Yep. Okay to move on.
Right, okay, that's it then. Right, so I'll now do my final bit. Right, okay, thank you, committee. That now brings the meeting to a close. May I just remind all those present that the supporting officer will confirm when the meeting is no longer being recorded or going live. And until then, your comments will be heard by the public.
Well chaired. Well done.
Thank you, Councillor Hall.
Thanks, Nick.
Very well done. Well done, Nick.
Thank you.
Nick. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nick.
Oh, God.